Incredible moment, single mom brings son to blind date. What the CEO revealed changed everything. Sara had always dreamed big, but life had a way of grounding those dreams. A dedicated single mom in her late 30s, each day felt like a battle. Working double shifts as a waitress and part-time cleaner, she somehow managed to keep her 10-year-old son Joey fed and cared for. Their little home was filled with laughter, but the unyielding struggle to pay bills and provide a future loomed like a dark cloud. It was hard to feel optimistic when the world around her felt stagnant and cold, when her neighbor Nancy, a bundle of energy and optimism, arranged a blind date with Mark, the charismatic CEO of a tech startup. Sara hesitated. What did a man like him know about her struggles? But in her heart, she longed for a break, a fleeting moment of happiness that wasn't dictated by debt or deadlines. So, she reluctantly agreed. Dinner was at the local diner, the comforting smell of greasy fries and burgers wrapping around Sara like a warm embrace. It was familiar territory where patrons talked loudly, and laughter floated through the air. And there, across from her, sat Mark, tall, confident, and undeniably charming. As they started talking, the initial awkwardness melted away, revealing a connection that ignited something within her. Sara spoke passionately about Joey, her dreams for his future, her fears about money, and the potential his school promised. But then came the iceberg. Mark casually mentioned a corporate decision that sent a chill down her spine, a significant budget cut affecting the local school system. The warm ambience of the diner shifted in an instant. That single detail dulled the sparkle of the night, threatening to sever the bond that had just begun to take root. "Wait, what?" she stammered, her heart racing. "You're telling me a budget cut could affect Joey's school?" The realization settled like a weight on her chest. Mark's glibness felt like a slap, a reminder of the worlds they inhabited, so vastly different yet momentarily aligned. Just then, a stirring of tension gripped the diner. The murmurs of onlookers seemed to echo Sara's inner turmoil. Did Mark understand what this meant? The sacrifices her neighbors made for their kids? The unwavering loyalty she felt to her community? She couldn't let this slide. "You have no idea what this means for us," she exclaimed, fear and indignation spilling from her lips. Mark shifted, surprise flickering across his face. He began to understand the depths of her heart, and for a moment, their paths converged, wrapped in a conversation that spanned beyond wealth and privilege. But just as they began to bridge their worlds, Mark's phone buzzed violently. An emergency at the plant. The urgency in his eyes matched the tightening in her chest. This was it. The moment defined them. As he listened to news of job threats at the plant, Sara's gaze searched his. Would he help them, or would he simply follow the path of profit that ignored the community? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As their connection hung in the balance, alive yet fragile with unspoken promises, Sara felt her heart thundering against her ribs. Could she truly trust him to stand for what was right? To fight for the community that had shaped her, given her resilience, and ultimately, defined the woman she was becoming? Standing at this crossroads, Sara realized that love sometimes meant protecting the very foundation upon which hope was built, and she needed to know if Mark could rise to that occasion. The diner felt stifled, the laughter around them muted as Sara processed the tension. Her heart raced, and the pool of uncertainty grew deeper. Mark was still on the phone, but his attention was divided. She could see how torn he was, faced with the urgency of company demands against the weight of real lives. Her life, Joey's future. As he ended the call, she didn't wait for him to gather his thoughts. "You didn't even hesitate," she said, her voice trembling. "That budget cut isn't just a number. It's about kids. It's about futures, and you're just going to let it happen?" Mark leaned back, running a hand through his hair, frustration etched on his face. Sara, you don't know the whole picture. I can't just turn $1 million ship around in a second, he replied, though the weight of her disappointment hung heavy in the air. She could see the conflict within him, but it didn't soften her stance. If you cared about the people in this town, you'd find a way, she shot back. The fire inside her grew, her heart aching for the families who relied on that school, who were fighting to make ends meet. And what about you? What do you want, really? He asked quietly. She blinked, momentarily caught off guard. This wasn't supposed to be about her. I want, she hesitated, emotions swirling, anger, fear, hope all fighting for expression. I want my son to have a chance, to have what we fought for. How can you keep taking from the people who already have nothing left? Mark opened his mouth as if to respond, but the words didn't come. A flicker of realization crossed his face, as he examined the passion in hers. There was a moment between them, charged and electric, and for the first time, he looked less like a CEO and more like a man who could make a choice. I'm not heartless, Sara, he began softly, but Sara wasn't ready to ease up. Maybe not, but it feels like you're trapped, she interrupted. Your world is all about numbers, isn't it? Profit over people. The heat of her words sizzled in the air, it felt raw and real, and she was surprised at how much she held on to this moment. Maybe she was fighting for herself too, for her right to be heard. Then he leaned forward, vulnerability slipping through his confident facade. I want to help but don't know how. There are limits in place hiding behind the system, won't change anything. The anger faded, replaced by a desperate need to connect. What if you could be the change we need? Not just at that plant, but in our schools. Her words hung between them, a bridge made of possibility. Mark opened his mouth to reply, then hesitated, eyes drifting away as he searched for answers in his mind, an internal battle brewing. Suddenly, the waitress appeared with a tray of burgers and fries. The moment dissolved, and the noise of the diner rushed forward once more, but Sara felt the magic was still there, hovering. Mark reached for his drink, his hand trembling slightly. I'll think about it, he finally said, though doubt loomed in his gaze. As they ate in silence, Sara's mind raced. Part of her was scared. What if he didn't rise to the occasion? Could she trust this man not only with her heart but with her community's hopes? After what felt like an eternity, Mark finally spoke. Sara, what if we could set up a meeting with the school board? Start with something small. A thrill ran through her. Hope began to flicker inside, yet her instincts warned her. And what if you just went back to your comfortable life, after hearing all of us? I won tea, he promised, a glimmer of resolve in his eyes. Just the rest of his words faded as Joey's laughter echoed in her mind, grounding her fears in the reality of motherly love. She placed her hand over his, heart racing. If this was truly the turning point, if Mark's promise was real, it could change everything. But a more urgent question nagged at her, leaving an unsettling twist in her stomach. Is it too late to fight for what you believe in? She whispered, searching his eyes. Mark's expression transformed as understanding washed over him, yet something unspoken lingered between them, a heavy anticipation. What lay ahead could ignite their lives but also tear them apart. That night, as they parted ways under the dim glow of streetlights, shadows from their lives loomed large. Sara felt the weight of what came next resting heavily on both their shoulders, wondering if they were ready for the fight ahead. The morning sun broke over the horizon, casting a golden hue over the sleepy town. As Sara sipped her coffee, she replayed the conversation with Mark. Hope intertwined with fear, creating a knot in her stomach. The promise of change filled her mind like an echo, twisting and pulling at her thoughts. Joey's laughter broke through her worries as he raced into the kitchen, his face bright with excitement. Mom! Can we go to the park today? His energy was contagious, and for a moment, she let herself bask in the warmth of motherhood. Sure, sweetie. Let me finish this first. What's for breakfast? He asked, climbing onto a chair to peek at the stove. Just some eggs. How about I make pancakes instead? She offered, and watched as his eyes lit up. Pancakes. Yay! His joy swept over her, and that knot in her stomach began to loosen. She could fight for him, for their future. Mark's words swirled in her head. They needed to set that meeting with the school board. The longer they delayed, the farther they drifted from possibility. After breakfast, as Joey bounced around, she picked up her phone, hesitating for just a heartbeat before pressing Mark's number. Each ring amplified her nerves. Would he really be committed, or was this just another half-hearted effort? Hey, Sara. His voice was bright but quickly turned serious. Did you need something? We should make that call to the school board. I want to get things moving, she urged, her heart pounding with anticipation. Absolutely. Can we meet today? The urgency spilled out before she could think twice. Today? Sure, I can squeeze it in, he responded, though she could hear the flutter of surprise in his tone. They agreed to meet in a nearby park. Sara felt a surge of determination as she hung up. Could this be the first step? Each moment spent with him felt like walking a tightrope between excitement and fear of falling. When they arrived at the park, the air was filled with the laughter of children and the scent of fresh grass. Sara had always loved the simple joys of a sunny day, and today it seemed to embrace her in a warm hug. Joey scampered off to the swings, and for a fleeting moment, she watched him swing higher and higher, as if defying gravity. Mark arrived just as Joey soared, his face a mix of seriousness and hopefulness. Hey, he said, walking up to her. Thanks for coming, Sara replied, trying to gauge his mood. His eyes followed Joey for a moment before landing back on her. You weren't kidding. He really enjoys the park, Mark remarked, a faint smile breaking through. Kids have that way of making everything brighter, don't they? Yeah, she replied softly, feeling the remnants of last night's conversation radiating between them. They remind us of what really matters. Mark nodded, clearly contemplating her words. So, what's our strategy? Sara took a breath, fueled by both hope and anxiety. We need to present our case, show them what these cuts mean for families like ours. And if they're not receptive? His gaze was steady, but she sensed the concern underlying his question. Then we keep fighting. We gather more voices, more stories. We make them hear us. Mark's expression shifted, a hint of admiration flickered in his eyes. I believe in that. I want to find a way to help in a meaningful way, not just as a CEO playing the part. Then let us do it together, she urged, her heart racing at the thought of a partnership forged from determination. Just then, a commotion erupted nearby. A group of children had gathered around Joey, animatedly pointing at a stray dog that wandered into the playground, seeking companionship and a morsel of kindness. Look, Mom! Joey called, filled with delight. Sara smiled, instinctively knowing that this was a metaphor of sorts, a tiny reflection of what was happening with her and Mark. They were both searching for something they desperately needed. As Joey approached the dog, his eyes lit with compassion and curiosity. Mark turned to her. You know, for what it's worth, I've always admired how passionate you are. It's inspiring. That's just how I feel about my kid in this town. She met his eyes, a spark igniting. If this was going to work, they had to fuel that fire together. For a moment, they stood in shared silence, the weight of possibilities pressing down. The laughter of children turned into a symphony around them, hinting at the larger battle they were preparing for, but Sara knew this was just the beginning. They had taken the first step, but the road before them was long and uncertain. Now, she couldn't shake the feeling that their resolve would soon be tested in ways they never expected. Mark, what if? She began to ask, her voice trailing off, the weight of the unknown looming large. His look turned serious again, anticipation thick in the air. What if what? She took a breath, heart racing. What if this is just the calm before the storm? His gaze met hers, the question hanging unspoken between them, both thrilling and terrifying. Sara felt the cool breeze against her skin, but inside, she felt a surge of warmth and adrenaline rush that pulled her toward possibility. A storm loomed, but this one felt different. It promised change, and she could see the first droplets forming on the horizon. "Let us not think about storms just yet," Mark said, breaking the spell. His smile faltered, but he tried to hold on to some semblance of optimism. "Let us focus on the meeting. We'll stand united." Encouraged by his words, Sara nodded. "Yes, we need to show them what's at stake. It's more than just figures on a balance sheet. It's about our kids and their futures." Joey returned, trailing behind the playful dog, his laughter ringing like wind chimes in the summer. "Look! Can we keep him, Mom?" He had a sparkle in his eye that just lit up the whole world around him. "Sweetheart, he's a stray. He might have a family looking for him." But even as she said this, Sara felt a twinge of longing. The dog seemed intent on sticking around, just like they were trying to do as a family finding their place amidst uncertainty. As Joey knelt down to pet the dog, Mark cleared his throat, drawing Sara's attention back to the serious matter at hand. "We should gather our facts. When we meet with the board, we need solid data and real stories. It will show them that these cuts impact real lives, people like us." "Yes, absolutely," Sara responded, her voice growing steadier. "We'll explain what these cuts mean for the children, their education, their social skills, their dreams. We can't just let them slice budgets without hearing us out." Mark's brow furrowed, his expression more focused. "And we need to prepare for pushback. Not every member will be on our side." "I know," she said, the knot of worry tightening again within her. "But we have to give it our all. Their indifference can't silence our truth." Just then, a cohort of parents passed by, tossing curious glances at Mark, who stood there with a confident posture, marking their small gathering. She could almost feel their assumptions swirl in the air, and the pressure amplified. "Isn't that Mark Thompson?" whispered one mother to her friend, just loud enough for Sara to catch. She wanted to shrink back, feeling the sting of judgment, but she drew a deep breath and stood tall. If they were going to fight their fight, they needed courage. "This is part of it, too," she murmured to Mark, who nodded slowly, understanding her shift in focus. Joey returned with the dog now, leading him by a makeshift leash of shoelaces that he had found. "Can we name him, Mom? He needs a name if he's going to stay with us." His innocent plea struck a chord in Sara's heart, making her cheeks flush with warmth. Mark crouched down beside Joey, his demeanor deeper and more vulnerable than she had ever seen. "How about we call him Hope?" He smiled, and in that moment, the spark they needed lit once more, bridging the worry of the world around them. "Hope," Sara echoed, reflecting on its weight. "Maybe we could all use a little more of that." As laughter bubbled up between them, the connection felt stronger, almost palpable. But underneath the lightness, the tension loomed, waiting for its moment to fracture the bubble they had created. The meeting was coming up fast, and she couldn't shake the feeling that it could change everything. "Mark," she said suddenly, swallowing hard. "What happens if they don't listen? What if we lose?" He looked deep into her eyes, and she noticed the flicker of fear mirrored in his. "Then we keep trying. We find other channels. We get louder. We don't give up." That moment settled heavy between them, a promise of resilience and struggle. "But what if there is something more we can do?" A flash of doubt crossed his face. "What do you mean?" Sara held his gaze, determination washing over her. "What if we reach out to others? Allies in this fight? We could build a coalition." Mark pondered her proposal, the weight of it hanging like the storm they sensed brewing in the background. "If we can rally others, it might just make a difference," he trailed off. But she had noticed something in his tone. Beneath the hope lay uncertainty, a mixture of hesitation and shared fervor. Would they be able to pull this off? the sound of children's laughter filled the air once again, a sweet reminder of what they were fighting for, but as Sara looked at the stray dogs snuggling up to Joey, she wondered if their bravest battles were yet to behold. "Should we take our leap together?" she asked, feeling as if they stood on the edge of something monumental. His eyes darkened with contemplation. "I'm in, but it won't be easy." Outside, with the laughter and joy swirling around them, the impending storm felt closer than ever, but Sara realized this was a call to arms. The challenges ahead filled her with anticipation. Would they be ready to ignite the change needed when they faced the board? And with that thought lingering, she felt the knot tighten again, this time not just with fear, but with excitement. What if we find out things about our community we never knew could give us exactly what we need? She pondered aloud, eyes alight with possibility. Mark met her gaze, their partnership never feeling more vital. Then we uncover the truth together, no matter where it leads us. As they stood there, the sound of Joey's laughter faded into a distant echo, but the fire igniting within them held strong, ready to forge forward into the unknown. The morning light slipped through the curtains, spilling onto the kitchen table where Sara sat, a pile of papers spread out in front of her. The details of their impending meeting loomed over her like that storm on the horizon, one that could either bring rain or the promise of growth. She sipped her coffee, but it felt too hot against her lips. She had too much on her mind. Joey barreled into the room, the dog now named Hope trailing behind him. "Can we take Hope to school with us today, Mom? Please?" His eyes were wide with enthusiasm, and for a moment, Sara forgot the weight pressing down on her. "Sweetheart, as much as I love that idea, I don't think they'll allow dogs in school," she replied gently, her heart softening at the sight of him. "But he can help me tell my friends about what we're doing. He's a great listener." Joey exclaimed, determination radiating off him like sunshine. Sara chuckled. "You make a convincing argument, but we need to focus today. We have to prepare for the meeting with the board. Remember, this is for the kids like you and your friends." Joey's expression shifted slightly, the innocence of a child making way for the seriousness of the moment. "Okay, but promise we'll keep Hope with us as much as we can." "Promise," she said, ruffling his hair, feeling a surge of love as he grinned. They both sat down, and she laid out plans. She had been drafting all the key points she wanted to address. Each figure in her notes felt like an anchor, solid and heavy, reminding her of why they were rallying support. Just then, Mark walked in, the air charged with unvoiced hopes and fears. He glanced at the crowded table. "Wow, looks like you've been busy." "I have to be. We can't just go in there empty-handed." "I want them to hear us," she replied, looking up with determination that he nodded, glancing at Joey, who was now happily tossing a ball for Hope. "And I believe we will. We'll make them listen. Maybe we should create some pamphlets or flyers," Sara suggested, her mind racing with ideas. "They could help simplify our message for the board members who may not understand the full extent of these cuts." Mark rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "That's a great idea. Visuals could be powerful. But then what if they take it the wrong way? We can frame it right. Make it personal." Sara shot back. "Tell them about our community. Share stories of the families affected. Show them it's about so much more than numbers." The flicker in Mark's eyes showed he was starting to see her vision, but she sensed a lingering doubt. "What if no what ifs? We're going to do this," she insisted, feeling that spark of hope surging back. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. It was unexpected, breaking the focus. Joey dashed for the door, curiosity bubbling over. Who could it be? When he swung the door open, there stood a woman clad in jeans and a bright red t-shirt that read, "I fight for schools." Her hair was wild, a mosaic of colors, but her confidence radiated as she introduced herself. "Hi. I'm Anna. I heard about your plans for the meeting, and I'd love to help. We can't just sit by while our kids' futures are put at risk." Sara's heart raced. A stranger, but someone who shared their urgency. "Come in." she called, excitement bubbling inside her. We were just putting together ideas to fight back. As Anna stepped in, Sarah's thoughts spiraled. If they could gather support like this, perhaps they weren't alone after all. Maybe they could shake the ground beneath the board's feet. Mark looked at Sara, the hope in his eyes mirrored her own. You see, we're already starting to build that coalition. But even as excitement surged through her, Sara couldn't help but wonder, what kind of forces were they up against? And how deep did the indifference of the board run? With each new ally, it felt like they were stepping into uncharted territory. Was this the beginning of something transformative, or were they setting themselves up for a fall? The door swung shut behind Anna, and Sara felt a rush of nervous energy. The kitchen, once just a home base for coffee and clatter, had transformed into a command center, alive with purpose. Joey settled next to Hope, still oblivious to the growing tension but instinctively aware that something important was happening. Thanks for coming, Anna. We need all the help we can get, Sara said, desperate for reassurance as she gestured toward the disorganized papers. This is our plan so far. It's not perfect, but we've got some angles. Anna looked at the papers, her brow furrowing slightly. We'll get there. But first, let us talk about what the board cares about. It's usually more about money than people. Her voice trailed off, replaced by a pensive silence. Mark cleared his throat, his trademark positivity flickering. You're right. We don't want this to turn into an emotional plea that they can dismiss. We need real data, solid numbers. Joey, still tossing the ball for Hope, chimed in with youthful sincerity, but it's not just numbers. It's about us. About our friends and how much we love school. He paused, a bit lost in thought. Maybe we can show them why it matters. Sara felt a swell of pride watching her son speak his mind. Exactly, Joey. And we can make a video. We could capture students sharing their stories. The idea blossomed. If they could see the faces behind the figures, the board members might start to care. Anna's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. I love that. And we could tie it into a social media campaign. Let the community share their experiences, too. It's powerful to see a crowd rallying. Mark nodded, his earlier caution slipping away. This could create a wave of movement. If we pull this off, we might just reach them, he said with a glimmer of excitement. The idea took root, the energy in the room shifting. Together, they launched into planning, notes flying as suggestions transformed into action points. They divided responsibilities, each taking ownership of a piece of the puzzle. But beneath the excitement, fear loomed just beneath the surface. Sara's heart sank momentarily when she thought of the possible backlash. They could be met with indifference, or worse, outright hostility. Would they be prepared for what the other side might throw at them? This wasn't just about numbers, this was about their lives, their children's futures. As they finalized their plans, Joey's laughter echoed in the background, a bright note cutting through the unease. Hope barked, joining in his joy, grounding Sara back to the moment. All right, let us meet again tomorrow with our ideas fully mapped out, Anna proposed, pulling them back into focus. When they all nodded in agreement, a thought struck Sara. What if we share those video testimonials during the meeting? It'll add a personal touch. Her mind raced ahead, imagining the impact it could create. Yes. Let us do it, Mark added, the enthusiasm contagious. But just then, a shadow flitted across Sara's mind. What if they didn't get the testimonials in time? How would it come across if they finished but the board remained unmoved? They wrapped up their discussions, minds brimming with possibilities, hearts racing with anticipation. As everyone prepared to leave, Anna turned to Sara, her expression earnest. I believe in this. We're fighting for our kids, and that alone makes this worth it. Just remember to stay strong. Thank you, Sara replied, touched by Anna's conviction, but with a nagging doubt whispering to her. After everyone left, as the sun set beyond the horizon, Sara could hear the faint sounds of children playing outside. But this time, they didn't feel like a backdrop. They felt like a reminder of what was at stake. Had they just crossed the line into something bigger? Would their voices be loud enough to rise above the din of disinterest? As she looked around at the scattered papers and hope strewn across the kitchen table, the weight of uncertainty pressed against her chest again. They were stepping into battle, but what would it take to win? With that thought echoing in the silence, Sara sat back down, the shadows lengthening around her, wondering just how far they were willing to go to fight for their children's future. The following morning, Sara woke up early, the sunlight pouring through her window like a promise. Yet each ray felt heavy with expectation. She had a wild mix of excitement and nerves bubbling in her stomach. Today was the day. They had to prove their point, and somehow, she felt this was more than just a meeting. It was a turning point. Standing in the kitchen, she brewed coffee, the rich scent filling the air. Joey trudged in, still yawning, his hair a tousled mess of curls. "Mom, can I help?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. Such a small offering, but it meant everything. "Of course, buddy. Can you grab some cups?" Sara replied, her heart swelling with gratitude for his unwavering spirit. Together, they shared simple moments, laughter threading through their conversation about school and friends. It anchored Sara, reminding her why they were fighting. Once their small kitchen was full of the promise of brewing coffee and the noise of a busy household, Sara turned her attention to the day ahead. She gathered her notes, pacing back and forth while Joey played with Hope, tossing her the same ball he had the day before. In every bounce, she could see them all fighting for something greater, not just for themselves. After breakfast, Sara pulled out her phone and reviewed the responses they received for the video testimonials. Some students had come through with touching stories. Others were still undecided or caught up in timidity. She felt that pit in her stomach again. What if they didn't get enough? What if those voices failed to show the board just how much school meant to them? Just then, her phone chimed with a notification that made her heart race. It was a video attachment from Diego, one of Joey's classmates. A familiar face smiled back at her from the screen. "Hi. I'm Diego. School's my favorite place because it feels like home. I love my friend." Sara's heart warmed as she watched, but something in the back of her mind whispered doubts. Would the board truly care about Diego's heart? Could they see the world through a child's eyes? When it was finally time to leave for the meeting, Sara gathered her papers and called to Joey, "We're off. Let us do this." They walked to the school board meeting, and the air felt electric. Each step felt like stepping into history, where hopes and dreams often clash with corporate interests. As they entered the room, Sara felt her heart thumping louder in her chest. The board members chatted amongst themselves, their faces inscrutable. "Just remember," she whispered to Joey, "we're here to show them who we are." With a nod, Joey held her hand tightly. She could feel his little fingers grip her with determination despite his nervousness. As they settled into their seats, she noticed Anna, Mark, and others filtering in, each face a mix of courage and concern. Finally, it was their turn to present. One by one, they each delivered passionate pleas, sharing not just numbers but the heart behind those figures. When it was Joey's turn, he stood up, standing tall despite his youth. "We love our school. It's where we laugh, learn, and grow together," he said, looking right at the board members. Sara caught sight of one board member, a notable skeptic, raising an eyebrow. Was he touched or dismissive? Her chest tightened, unsure of what to expect. As they wrapped up their presentation, the air thickened with anticipation. Sara could almost feel the crowd taking a collective breath, waiting for something pivotal to shift. It was then she understood that this was not just her fight or Joey's, it was the community's voice, a collective heartbeat echoing for their futures. But as the board members began to whisper to each other, her throat tightened. Would their efforts land on deaf ears? Then, the unexpected happened. A ripple of murmurs passed through the audience. Someone had just slipped a cell phone to one of the board members. The tension in the room shifted, drawing everyone's gaze toward the come and go of secrets. What new information had just entered the conversation? Could it potentially change everything? They fought for. Sara held her breath, waiting as eyes turned toward the board, pulses quickening with the weight of anticipation. What were they about to reveal? The hush inside the room settled like a blanket, as all eyes gravitated towards the board. Fingers drummed on tables, restless feet shifted nervously on the floor. Sara could sense the electricity in the air crackling. She exchanged a quick glance with Joey, whose big eyes mirrored her own uncertainty. The board member who received the secretive phone shifted in his seat, raising a hand to capture the room's attention. The whispers subsided, and a sharp silence fell. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his tone clipped, "we just received some, let's say, unexpected news regarding our funding allocations." Sara's heart raced. Her gut twisted with worry. Was this good news? Or would it throw everything they fought for into jeopardy? The man continued, "It seems our budget had recently absorbed a miscalculation that may affect certain proposals." He paused, glancing briefly down at his notes. "However, this new information could mean that instead of cuts, we may have an opportunity for realignment of resources." A wave of gasps flowed through the audience. Hope mingled with doubt. Could it be true? What does that mean for us? Someone called out from the crowd. The room held its breath, hanging on that all-important thread of communication. "We'll need to review our options," the board member replied, his eyes now scanning the room, "but it suggests that funding could potentially be directed toward more immediate community needs rather than being simply siphoned off." Sara's mind raced. Immediate community needs. Was this the opening they needed? They could argue that their petition was indeed a community need. She shifted her focus to the board members, each face an unreadable mask. Did they see the light that just flickered, or were they still encased in shadows of previous decisions? Joey nudged her, breaking her concentration. "Mom, do you think it means they'll help us?" His voice was small, pinpricked with hope. I don't know, buddy," Sara admitted, unable to hide her wavering tone. She wanted to believe, deeply, but the weight of reality pressed down on her. The board member continued, outlining the need for proper internal reviews and suggesting that they would consider the proposals presented, including Sara's group's plea for support. "We'll call for a vote to continue discussions around our funding situation in our next meeting. I know the community is anxious, and your input has been invaluable." "That's good, right?" Joey asked, a flicker of excitement igniting in his eyes. "Yes." Sara exclaimed a bit too loudly, drawing amused glances from nearby parents. But her smile was genuine. "It's a step forward, Joey. We have to stay focused and keep fighting for what we believe in." But even as hope lifted their spirits, a pang of worry kept clawing at Sara's heart. This wasn't the end, it was just the beginning of a new chapter. The board members began to wrap up the meeting, and as people mingled and exchanged thoughts, uncertainty still hung thickly in the air. Sara caught snippets of conversations, murmurs of doubt mingling with sprinkles of optimism as everyone processed what had just happened. "Mom, what now?" Joey asked, tugging gently at her sleeve. Sara knelt down, looking into his bright eyes that spoke of growing courage. "Now we prepare. We need to rally more voices, show them what our school really needs. We can't just stop because there's a glimmer of hope, we have to keep pushing." As they started to leave the meeting, a familiar face approached them. It was Anna, her expression a mix of triumph and anxiety. "Did you see that? They might really listen to us. But we have to find a way to keep the pressure on." "Yes, together." Joey chimed in, fists clenched, ready for action. Sara nodded, energized by her son's enthusiasm as well as Anna's fierce spirit. They had ignited a spark, but were they prepared to fan the flames? The weight of responsibility pressed on Sara once more. She looked at her son, feeling the power of their collective vision come alive. Would this newfound moment lead them to the breakthrough they desperately sought? But as they stepped out into the echoing halls, one final thought reverberated through Sara's mind: who would stand beside them in the next phase of their fight. With every ounce of determination, she took Joey's hand, but the uncertainty loomed ahead. Who would wind up standing tall when the dust settled, and at what cost? The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow through the school's windows as Sara, Anna, and Joey stepped outside. The air felt charged, heavy with possibility. Sara felt like she was teetering on the edge of something monumental. With the board's unexpected news still swirling in her mind, she knew they had to act fast. "Let us have a meeting tonight at my place," Anna suggested, already pulling out her phone to set up a group chat. "We need to gather our supporters and figure out our next move." "Will everyone come?" Joey asked, a hint of concern shadowing his excitement. "There's only one way to find out," Sara reassured him, squeezing his shoulder. "But I believe they will." As they made their way to the parking lot, Sara's heart raced with a mix of hope and anxiety. Was it too optimistic to think that they could ignite a movement? The idea of leading a charge felt overwhelming, yet invigorating all at once. That evening, as darkness wrapped around their small town like a comforting blanket, the living room in Sara's tiny apartment buzzed with chatter. Friends, parents, and neighbors filled the room, their faces glowing under the soft light of string lights she had hung. The laughter and camaraderie created a sense of warmth, even under the weight of their mission. "Okay, everyone," Sara began, standing in front of the assembled group. Her voice wavered slightly, but she pressed on. "Today, we got some promising news about funding. This could be our chance, our moment to show how important our school and community needs are. We can't sit back now. We need to rally support and make our voices loud." The air thickened with energy as the group shared their ideas and concerns. One mom spoke up about a petition they could circulate. Another dad suggested a community event to raise awareness. Joey sat on the floor with Anna, drawing plans for a creative banner they could display. "This is great!" Anna exclaimed, rallying the room. "We can show them just how much we care. If we can get enough signatures, we might have a real shot at that funding." Sara watched her son and his friends, their innocence and passion sparking a fire deep within her. She realized it wasn't just about the funding anymore, it was about building a sense of community, a togetherness that transcended their struggle. As the meeting flowed, ideas continued to bounce around, plans for social media campaigns, video messages of support, even a potential rally. But amidst the enthusiasm, a sinking feeling gnawed at Sara's insides. What if they fell short? What if all their efforts were in vain? "Mom, can I say something?" Joey's small voice cut through her thoughts. "Of course, sweetheart." "Everyone, this is Joey," Sara said proudly. I think we should share our story," he said, looking around at the adults who had gathered. "The stuff we say should be true, real. If people understand how much we care, maybe they'll want to help too." Sara's heart soared at his insight. He could see the bigger picture, the emotional weight behind their efforts. "You're absolutely right, buddy. We need our community to know what's at stake for us and our school." His boldness inspired those in the room, and one by one, they began to share their personal stories, the challenges they faced, the dreams they still clung to for their children's futures. The night stretched on, laughter, hope, and determination filling the corners of the room. Just as they were about to wrap up, Anna leaped to her feet. "I have an idea. What if we create a video? We can share it online and really reach more people." The room erupted in applause, the energy surging like an electric current. In that moment, Sara felt her doubts begin to fade. Perhaps they could make a difference, ignite a spark that transformed their fight into a welling wave of support, but as the evening drew to a close and everyone filtered out, a feeling settled back in. The challenge ahead was steep, far from simple. Would they truly be able to rally the community? Would the board take them seriously when the moment arrived? As she tucked Joey into bed, his eyes fluttering with sleep, Sara felt a mix of emotions swirl within her. Could one video, one moment of courage, change everything? In the darkness, she made a silent promise to herself: they would find out whatever it took. But uncertainty lingered. Would they be ready for the storm that was about to break? The day of the board meeting arrived like a thunderstorm over the horizon, and the weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on Sara's heart. She stood at the kitchen counter, nerves bubbling as she reviewed the video on her phone for the 100th time. Was it enough? Would their stories resonate with the board members? "Mom, let us go." Joey's voice rang through the air, his excitement undeterred by the seriousness of the moment. He bounded into the kitchen with Hope, the cheerful dog trailing behind him, tail wagging. Instinctively, a smile broke across Sara's face, grounding her in the here and now. "Okay, buddy. Just a minute," she replied, collecting her papers and glancing once more at the video, her heart aching with hope and fear. As they headed out, the day was unusually bright, sunlight bathing the town in warm hues, almost as if nature conspired to lift their spirits. Little reminders of resilience danced around them: children riding their bikes, families walking together. This was the lifeblood of their community, the very heartbeat they were fighting for. Arriving at the school, they pushed their way through the crowd gathering outside, anxiety buzzing in the air. Parents, teachers, and kids milled around, faces painted with hope and determination, a sense of unity that gave Sara an unexpected boost. "Mom, look!" Joey pointed, eyes bright. A makeshift banner flapped in the gentle breeze, hand-painted with bold letters: "Our kids, our future." In that moment, it wasn't just a slogan. It was a promise. As they entered the boardroom, the atmosphere felt charged. The panel of board members sat at the long table, their expressions unreadable. Sara took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenge ahead. She could see Anna and Mark exchanging encouraging glances nearby, a silent reminder of their united front. Joey squeezed her hand, a small gesture that ignited the fire within her. This was it. She took her stance, thoughts swirling as her heart raced. "We're here today not just as parents, but as a community ready to stand for what matters most: our kids and their education." Her voice rang out with confidence, eyes sweeping across the others present. One by one, stories flowed: parents shared personal anecdotes, teachers spoke of their struggles, and then it was Joey's turn. Standing small yet fierce before the panel, he looked directly into the eyes of the board members. "School is my favorite place because I get to learn, play, and be with my friends. We can't lose that." Tears stung Sara's eyes. This brave boy, her son, embodied everything they were fighting for. The room swelled with emotion, and murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. As the video rolled, emotional testimonials streamed across the screen, faces of kids and families emphasized the stark reality behind the numbers. There were laughs, there were tears, visible connections forged across the divide of privilege and struggle. Sara's heart pounded. Would they get through? Would the board see the faces and hear the voices that mattered? When the video finished, a quiet stillness enveloped the room. It hung there, thick as smoke, waiting for an answer. After a long moment, a board member broke the silence. That was compelling. "We need to revisit our priorities and assess our funding framework. Clearly, these concerns are valid." A wave of hope washed over the room as applause erupted. This was the beginning, but it was still slippery. The board's promise was fuzzy, a whisper caught in the winds of bureaucracy. They wouldn't stop here. They needed to keep momentum alive. On the way home, the atmosphere shifted from anxiety to exhilaration. "Did you see the look on their faces?" Joey exclaimed, practically bouncing in his seat. "Yeah, I did," Sara replied, shining with pride. This was no longer just about school funding, this was about people believing in each other, and working together. That evening, amidst the excited chatter about possibilities, Sara felt an unfamiliar, comforting warmth settle inside her. Perhaps they weren't just fighting for change, they were igniting a community. Within days, social media buzzed with photos and stories from that meeting, parents and children coming together like an unstoppable wave. Support poured in from unexpected places, neighbors united for a shared cause, transforming the struggle into a tangible force for change. As Main Street lit up with signs for a community rally in support of the schools, Sara felt a wave of determination pulse through her. They were rising together. This wasn't an end, this was the dawn of a new chapter, and every thrilling moment, every heartfelt story, carried the promise of transformation not just for her, or Joey, but for all the children of their town. They were creating a legacy, a place where futures could flourish, dreams could dance free, and real change was just on the horizon. As she watched Joey play with hope in the yard, a wave of fulfillment washed over her. She realized something incredible: they had found their strength together, beating the odds, creating a better future. And no storm could take that away. This was their moment. And as the sun set, Sara smiled, radiant with hope. It was a beautiful day, because they had chosen to fight. Now, if you felt the power of this story and want to witness more journeys like this, subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive tales. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more hearts, and comment down below about your reactions and feelings regarding this ending. And if you truly believe in the power of community and change, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to show your support now. Don't wait not even one more second to share.